¿Están bien?
Bien.
Está
Bien,
bien.
Bien para un lunes. Good for a Monday, right? Sí. Bueno, me alegro. I am hoping my sound comes through okay because I've got my alternate headphones on, but you know, I've got some techie problems here I'm going to have to try to figure out after class since I could not fix them before class. Anyway, hopefully the sound will come through okay with my other headset here. And vamos a practicar muchísimo con presente progresivo. We'll do a lot with present progressive. And I want some of our practice to reflect this idea of kind of try to get used to the idea of we can switch into some different tenses, but they will have, you know, somewhat different meanings, and how we can talk about different time settings from using these different verb forms, that being present and present progressive, and the ir, a plus infinitive to talk about future. So I'm going to show you the 2 pages. If you're the type of person who is more comfortable with printing stuff out, I want to show you the pages we will be using that I had sent out so that you can take a look at it, grab it, and have it handy. We are in a little bit going to take a look at this, which is, you know, just a drill on can you use presente progresivo, present progressive. Okay, so either have a second screen handy with that, or pull up your page if you printed it. And ditto this one. This will be the big one where we want to take a look at we'll look at this much later, of course, in class, but we'll want to take a look at how there are these slight nuances, slight differences in what all these different verb forms mean, how meanings of the action change from using presente to using presente progresivo to talking about the future using ir and a and an infinitive. So that will come to a bit later in class, durante la clase. Pero quiero empezar. I do want to start with a little short video, and I want you to notice how she switches between different ideas using different kinds of verbs. In this little video, it's really a short one. Es muy corto. Y momentito. I need to get my screen set up properly, so bear with me here a moment. Un momento. Okay, we're going to see if we can get this to play here. Sí, a ver. Okay. So I want you to check out the subtitles for sure while we watch this. This is a little session from nuestra amiga Maria en Bogotá. This is her depicting what the Sunday cycling day is like. There on Sundays in Bogotá, they close down a lot of the main streets, and they close them down so that only people in bikes and skates and skateboards can get on the streets. It's kind of a public exercise day. So when she talks about en bici in Bogotá, it's this day set aside, Sunday morning and afternoon, for people just to get on the streets and not have to worry about cars hitting them on their bikes and skates. So, but no, I want you to notice all the different ways she's going to use verbs in this short little, just 1 minute blip here. Okay. Momento. I cannot hear any sound. Can you hear any sound? Oh, that's on. That would really help. Okay, aquí vamos. Here we go. Let's try this again.
Vamos a montar en bici en Bogotá.
Vamos a montar. We're going to. So you're going to hear some future and some things that are present. Vamos a montar. We're going to ride.
Acompáñame. Ahora cruzamos la calle por la cebra.
And here, cruzamos la calle por la cebra. We're crossing the street. We're doing this. We cross the street. We are crossing the street. We can use this idea of cruzamos presente for we're crossing as well. Okay. Cebra, it means zebra. And zebra is the crosswalk here with the stripes. That's what they call the crosswalk because it's got stripes like a zebra, like a zebra. Okay.
Vamos a pedalear.
We're going to pedal.
¿Viste el perro?
And that's a pass.
Estamos bajando la rampa.
Ahí estamos bajando. We are going underneath. Or excuse me, down, perdón. Not underneath, but down. Bajando la rampa. We're going down the ramp. It doesn't look that far down, which is why I'm getting a little visually messed up here. Estamos bajando la rampa. We're going down the ramp.
Y ahora, debajo del puente.
Debajo del puente. Now we're saying under the bridge.
Cuidado con el carro. Esperamos a que el semáforo cambie y
esperamos, we're waiting.
Vamos.
Y nos vamos, we take off.
Ahora nos bajamos de la bici.
And we get off the bike.
Vamos a tomar un poco de agua.
That's true. And yeah, vamos a tomar. We're going to drink a little water. This is also a way of saying let's do something.
Cruzamos la calle con cuidado. Mira, está pasando el tren.
And mira is a command, actually. It says, hey, do that, look. Está pasando el tren. The train is passing by.
Hay charcos en la calle. Llovió anoche.
Charcos are puddles. Llovió is a past. It rained last night. Not it's raining now, but it rained last night.
Listo, por fin terminamos.
Okay. Y eso es todo. Muy corto. But it's a nice compilation of showing about how we talk about the present. And just how we can mix a lot of those garden variety verbs. Okay. And I lost one of my videos. One thing I want to kind of reinforce with everybody is about this presente progresivo is how it is different from the way we use the same thing, present progressive. It's different from the way we use present progressive in English. It's the same in that we use somebody is doing, and they have an ing, the ando and yendo, right? But so the formation is similar, just using their different Spanish correlations to those words. But the feel for what is going on or the time frame of that action with presente progresivo is different in Spanish than it is in English. Okay, so we're going to take a look at a portion, but the portion that talks about meaning through this. So we're halfway through this video, and she's just going to show you the structure, and then she's going to talk about how the meaning is actually different.
Pause the video if you'd like to try it on your own. Then we
Okay.
drop off the AR ending from hablar. And finally, we add the ando. This gives us está
So just the formation part,
hablando.
right?
He is talking right now. This tense doesn't follow the same rule it does in English because in Spanish, it means the action is happening right now. It is much more likely that you will want to use the infinitive or just a normally conjugated verb rather than the present progressive. Just ask yourself, is the action happening as I speak?
And that's the key. We use this tense when we want to talk about something really is, as we like to call it in techie talk, real time. Okay. If somebody asks you, ¿Qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? They mean at this exact minute, not what are you doing 3 hours from now, or what are you doing tonight, or what are you doing tomorrow? They mean right now when they ask you in this presente progresivo.
If the answer is no, then you probably want a different tense. Let's look at what I mean. In English, it's perfectly fine to say, I like running, I hate doing homework, I'm going to Costa Rica. In Spanish, since the speaker is not actually doing those things as they're speaking, they wouldn't use the present progressive tense.
So none of these are present progressive that you see in these examples. I like running. And when we use running as a noun, I like the sport of running. That ing will not happen as an ando or a yendo. That ing is really functioning as a noun. I like running, the action of running. So when we're using that idea of ing as a noun, we really go back to the infinitive, me gusta correr, or I hate doing homework, odio hacer la tarea. I hate doing homework. I'm going to Costa Rica, voy a Costa Rica. There we just use I'm going, voy, presente, present.
Instead, a better choice is the infinitive, or just a normally conjugated verb. Me gusta correr. Odio hacer la tarea. Voy a Costa Rica. Oh, let's level up. If you feel comfortable with what you just learned, then it's time to level up with more information. If you don't feel comfortable yet, then skip to the time shown on the screen for practice, and then come back to this point when you feel you're ready. Rule benders. We want to watch out for too many vowels in a row.
Okay, so this is a tiny thing, and it's really more spelling thing than a speaking thing, because when you speak, these will sound the same. If you have too many vowels in a row, there'll be a spelling change. She'll show you what she means.
The word leer, to read, for instance, would look like this after being conjugated. It bends the rules to change the I to a Y, because otherwise there'd be too many vowels in a row and just be too hard to pronounce.
So, whereas like, if any of you know French, you can do 3, 4 vowels in a row, all glommed together in French, depending on the tenses. You can't do that in Spanish. They don't really like multiple vowels all strung together. There are a few tenses where that happens in a couple of conjugations, but not very often. So L-E-I-E-N-D-O is not a thing. That I will change to a Y. So any verbs that are EER verbs will have that leyendo with a Y instead of I-E-N-D-O, Y-E-N-D-O. It's just a spelling thing. It really sounds pronunciation-wise
the actual rule is if an I falls between 2 vowels, it will change to a Y. Other examples are oír, to hear, and creer, to believe. Sometimes this is called the old MacDonald had a farm rule, E-I-E-I-O. Other tenses. You will see stem changers in this tense, but the good news for us language learners is they only happen with IR verbs, like my example with dormir at the beginning of the video where the O changed into a U.
Okay. What this is about is that sometimes with a few verbs, and it's not with many, but dormir is one of them, to sleep. With some verbs that are IR and IR stem changing verbs, only the IRs that are stem changing verbs, and some of you don't know stem changers yet. We're going to get back into a review of that later today in a class. Stem changers are verbs that have an internal vowel change. It splits off into generally like a couple of vowels instead of being one vowel. So there are a few verbs that are IRs that will, like dormir won't be dormiendo for sleeping, it'll be durmiendo. Servir, because it's an IR that is a stem changer, won't be serviendo, it'll be sirviendo. Pedir, to ask for, to order, will not be pidiendo, but pidiendo. Stuff like that. So there are a few little odd things with these ando, yendo verbs that are kind of, I guess, in our way of thinking, irregular, but
Did you notice
mostly in a
the
spelling
ando
sense.
and yendo endings? They didn't change to match the pronoun. The present progressive ending will always end in an O, whether the subject is masculine or feminine, singular or plural. To use this tense, we need a form of estar, a verb, and one of the present progressive endings, ando for AR verbs, or yendo for ER-IR verbs. Let's give it a shot.
Okay, and we're going to get out of that because we're going to get into a different one for some other practice before we do our actual practice. Y aquí, here we
Vamos
go.
a
Here we'll
aprender
see
a hablar de las
people actually
acciones que
using this.
ocurren en este momento. ¿Estás listo? Empecemos. Este es nuestro primer video de nuestra sección Zero to Fluency, en donde estoy enseñándole a Cody a hablar español.
Hola, soy Cody.
Si quieres ver nuestros videos anteriores, puedes hacer clic aquí para poder ver cómo Cody empezó a aprender español. ¿Estás listo?
Listo.
El tema de hoy se llama presente progresivo.
What is the use of that? ¿Para qué sirve?
Bueno, es una pregunta muy buena porque el presente progresivo es una forma verbal que sirve para describir acciones que pasan en este momento.
Okay, so es similar de inglés. Y I'm walking, I'm eating, I'm sitting.
Sí, es similar al inglés. Lo usas para hablar de acciones que ocurren al momento de hablar. Para utilizar el presente progresivo de manera correcta, tú y tú necesitan conocer el verbo estar. ¿Recuerdas el verbo estar, Cody?
Yo recuerdo.
¿Cómo es?
Posibilidad, no recuerdo.
Bueno, el verbo estar, recuerda, es yo estoy, tú estás, él está, ¿qué más?
Nosotros estamos, and ellos, ellas, ustedes están.
Ellos, ellas, ustedes están. Recuerda que en español no es necesario utilizar el sujeto o utilizar la persona. Entonces tú puedes decir simplemente estoy, estás, estamos, etc. ¿Muy bien?
Muy bien.
Listo. Ahora que ya conoces o recuerdas el verbo estar, necesitas otro verbo que puedes utilizar para describir la acción que estás realizando en ese momento. Por ejemplo, el verbo hablar. La terminación de hablar es ar. Lo que debes hacer ahora es reemplazar la terminación ar por ando. Entonces quedaría así. Estoy hablando. Ahora veamos los verbos que terminan en o ir. Por ejemplo, comer o escribir. Es muy fácil. Solamente reemplaza la terminación o ir por yendo. Entonces quedaría así. Estoy comiendo. Estoy escribiendo. Eso es lo básico. ¿Entendiste? ¿Estás listo para practicar?
Sí, ¿qué hago? What do I have to do?
Es muy fácil. Te voy a mostrar una foto y a ti también. Y tú debes decir o debes responder qué están haciendo las personas de la foto. ¿Entendiste?
Sí, so we have to look at the photo and say what the people are doing in the photo.
Muy bien, perfecto. Empecemos. La pregunta es, ¿qué está haciendo si es él o ella? ¿Y qué están haciendo si son ellos o ellas? ¿Qué está haciendo?
So está dibujando.
Está dibujando. ¿Qué está haciendo?
Ejerciciando. Está haciendo ejercicio. Está corriendo. Está corriendo. Está trotando.
Está corriendo. Está trotando. Está haciendo ejercicio.
Yeah, in Spanish, you do exercise. So they use hacer ejercicio. Está haciendo ejercicio. He's working out. He's doing exercise,
¿Qué
literally.
está haciendo?
Está comprando. Está vendiendo.
Está comprando. Está vendiendo. ¿Qué está haciendo?
Está trabajando. Está estudiando.
Está trabajando. Está estudiando.
¿Qué está haciendo?
Está bailando.
Está bailando. Muy bien. ¿Cómo te fue? How did it go? Escríbenos en los comentarios si la actividad te pareció fácil o difícil. Easy or difficult. Pero espera, porque como casi siempre hay excepciones. Por ejemplo, el verbo oír. Oyendo. Oyendo.
Okay, so here she shows you a lot of these little things that have the funny Y-E-N-D-O endings instead of I-E-N-D-O. And this thing for ir yendo is not very common. Just, you know, if people want to say we're going somewhere, they're going to say vamos. This yendo is not a common thing.
Leer. Leyendo. Ir. Yendo. Creer. Creyendo. Entonces, para estos 4 verbos, simplemente cambia la I de yendo y reemplázala por una Y de yendo. Ahora, recuerda que también puedes hacer preguntas. Por ejemplo, Cody, ¿estás cocinando?
En este momento no cocinando.
No estoy.
No estoy cocinando.
Recuerda, debes decir estoy. El verbo estar con el verbo en ando o yendo. ¿Listo?
Listo.
Entonces, Cody, ¿qué estás haciendo en este momento?
Estoy hablando.
Muy bien. ¿Y tú, qué estás haciendo en este momento? Escríbenos en los comentarios. Bueno, eso es todo por hoy. Recuerda practicar y poner atención.
Okay, vale, magnífico. Tienen la idea básica, ¿verdad? ¿Hay una pregunta, alguna pregunta antes de empezar? Any question before we start with some of these exercises we had for the day or no? Nada? Okay.
No.
This is usually an easy tense for most people to use. You just need to make sure that you understand it won't mean near future, like I'm going to the grocery store in a couple of hours. It can't be used for that. It's got to be used to talk about what is going on right now. So we're going to take a look and see if you guys can help build these. I'm making my screen a little bit bigger. We're going to look at the first screen or the first file that you got, just making an ing verb. That's it. That's the only thing that you're doing here, right? So we're conjugating estar for the person who does the action, and then the second part will be something it has will be the actual verb, the main activity, the action, but with an ando or yendo that corresponds to the ing idea in English. Okay. Y como se dice, they are working all day, and we have to use trabajar. ¿Cómo se dice they are working?
Están trabajando todo el día.
Están trabajando, sí. Están trabajando
Todo el día.
todo el día. Todo el día. Okay. I'm watching a show about animals, and that will change to an ing just like you think it should. I'm watching.
Estoy viendo
Estoy
un programa sobre animales.
Sí, estoy viendo un programa de animales o sobre animales. There are different ways you can say about in this setting. Bien, fantástico. Are you telling a story?
Eres tú
Contando.
contando una historia.
Yeah, so it'll depend on which you, of course. Estás
Contando
contando
una
una historia.
Oh,
Estás contando, it could be está usted contando, it could be están ustedes contando, right? Because I don't specify in this if the you is 1, 5 people, whoever it may be. She is writing an email.
Ella está escribiendo un correo electrónico.
Exacto. Ella está escribiendo and there are different ways to say email. Un correo electrónico is certainly good. Some people do just use un email.
Oh,
Some people do. Yeah, it kind of depends on where you are. Some, I think with younger people, they like to sometimes take the shorter term more than the folks our ages. So there are tech words that sometimes just make their way into Spanish from the English because they're tech words. Un email, un correo electrónico. Bueno, we are buying many things.
Nosotros estamos comprando muchas cosas.
Sí, estamos comprando muchas cosas. Muchas cosas, okay? Or, you could just say estamos comprando mucho and leave it at that. That's another way you could express that idea and still get the idea across perfectly well. The plane is
El
arriving.
avión está llegando.
El avión está llegando. And this would have to be, it's taxing up while we're talking, okay? I can't say the plane is arriving in 2 hours and use this tense. If I mean it's happening 2 hours from now, it has to be, we see it driving in, wheeling itself in. Okay, and this one is going to have, it will not really sound different, but we'll have that spelling change, the funny spelling change. I'm reading the
Estoy
newspaper.
leyendo.
Yo estoy leyendo el
periódico.
periódico.
Estoy leyendo el periódico.
El periódico. Okay.
Sí.
Estoy
¿Hay alguna pregunta o no?
leyendo el periódico.
And you see how this leyendo looks. This leyendo looks like that because we can't really have, Spanish as a general rule, phonetically is not okay with the idea of 3 vowels like that in a row, L-E, I-E. It just is a no-no in most cases. So leyendo, there we go. We're drinking all night long.
Estamos bebiendo toda la noche.
Sí, estamos bebiendo toda la noche. Okay. Bien, 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 bien. Okay. Are you opening a bottle right now?
¿Tú estás abriendo botella ahora?
¿Estás abriendo una botella?
Ahora.
Ahora.
Botella, wow. I misspelled that. Una botella ahora. Bien. O está abriendo, lo que sea, whatever. Or están ustedes abriendo. Are you guys opening? Sí. Kids are running in the park.
Los niños están corriendo.
Corriendo en el parque.
Sí, los niños and, depending on the age of the kids, it might be los muchachos, right? Los chicos están corriendo
En el
en
parque.
el parque.
en el parque.
El parque.
En el parque, bien, bien. Ok. Vale, ok. So all these would have to be indicating that something is going on while we're actually talking about it, to use this tense. That's just the way they use this tense in Spanish, okay? English does not do the same thing. In English, we might say something like what you hear down here, and we're not talking about right now, but sometime soon. So I'm eating later tonight. I can't say estoy comiendo in this situation because later tonight is not right now,
Yeah.
yeah? So we'd have to express this idea as what, guys?
Yo como.
Voy
Yo
a
como.
Yo
comer.
como luego esta noche.
Yeah, okay, so there are a couple things you could say.
Yo
Como
como
más
más tarde
tarde,
esta noche.
esta noche. Esta noche is always tonight. Or we might say,
Voy a
voy
comer
a
más
comer.
tarde.
Voy a comer perfecto también, also perfect. You can keep it to say near future, something really soon, like later tonight. Okay, we're not talking about 3 weeks from now or next month, something kind of soon. So we can use either presente, pleno presente, or voy a comer. Either one is okay. It gets that idea across. So you do have some choices, okay? The train is leaving tomorrow afternoon.
El tren sale mañana en la
El
tarde.
tren.
De la tarde.
El tren, probably the easiest
Sale.
way is just this, sale. El tren sale
Mañana a
mañana
la tarde.
Mañana en la
por
tarde.
la tarde.
Hola.
Some people do express that as en la tarde. I prefer por la tarde, but por la tarde, en la tarde, you may hear people use either little preposition. They may use por la tarde. Some people will use en la tarde. Not a big deal either way there. Okay, they're living in the city, and you don't really mean like, well, okay, it is right now, but you mean like all the time, right? It's not just talking about right now, but now and tomorrow, and it's just like a constant thing rather than just in this present moment. Ellos
Viven.
viven
Viven en la ciudad.
en la ciudad. Ellos viven en la ciudad. Exacto. We're cooking fish tonight. And it's not right now, so can't be estamos cocinando. It'll be what?
Cocinamos pescado esta noche.
Cocinamos pescado
Esta noche.
esta noche. Or you could say vamos a cocinar. That would also be okay. Pescado esta noche. Because the ir in an infinitive works for near future. And we've got, I think, 2 actions going on. So we've got to do something with escuchar and something with trabajar. And now we're talking about what you do while you're working. And you don't know the word while. Everybody doesn't necessarily know the word while. So I gave you that word. While is mientras. And how would we express this idea?
¿Escuchas la música mientras trabajas?
Escuchas música o la música, sí. Mientras
¿Trabajas?
trabajas. And now with this idea, we're really talking about what you do as a general habit, right? Not what you did the other day, not what you're going to do soon, but what you do as a general habit or a pattern in your day. Escuchas la música mientras trabajas. And just pleno presente. Pleno presente, or maybe ir plus a plus an infinitive, are really what you want for all these examples down here. Because they're not talking about real time at this moment while we speak. Okay, they're talking about habits or what will happen soon, but not what is going on right now. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? Any question with any of these examples or anything that looked odd or puzzling? ¿Sí o no? ¿No? Nada. Nada. Ok. Bien. Bien. Ok. Lo que quiero
Carolyn?
hacer. Perdón. Sí, Larry, dime.
Can you send that to us in your weekly thing that you send out to us with the answers filled in?
Sí, I will do that. Sí. Con las respuestas. I will leave it just as it is there so that you can see it as is. Exacto. Ok. Bien.
Pregunta.
Sí, dime.
Pregunta. On the last example, it translates, the way you ask it is you're working, but it translates while you work, right?
Yes. Well, okay. Pull that up so we can take a look at that so everybody can have that in mind. Escuchas la música mientras trabajas. Es ese, that, Mariana, it's that one, right?
Yes.
That's when you have the question. Okay. Vale. Trabajas, if you talk about how do we translate that conjugation, trabajas? What does it translate to in English? It can mean one of three things in English. We might use three things in English where they use this word trabajas. You do work, you work, you're working. Trabajas can mean any of those three ideas in English. English might use any of those three formations, but in Spanish it will just come out as generally trabajas. That's it.
Okay.
So
no estar is needed then, no, to be. You are.
no.
Okay.
No. For this, no. And the reason we won't use estar with trabajar here is that we are not talking really about what you are doing this minute. Do you listen to music while you're working? And it's talking about a general habit. The idea behind this sentence is the habit that you have, what you're accustomed to doing in a general day, any old day, but not necessarily that it's going on right now. And so that's why it does not go into the estar and the ando or estar yendo kind of formation.
Right. I got
Eso
okay.
es,
But
that's it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So what we want you to get in the habit of doing is that we use the upper thing, the first 10 that you saw, of estar with the ando, estar with the yendo, only for what is going on now. And typically somebody will ask you the question as, ¿qué estás haciendo? What are you doing? And then they mean right now. No hago nada, no estoy haciendo nada. I'm not doing anything. Or estoy cuidando a los niños en el parque. I'm taking care of the kids in the park. You know, it'll be something that is happening right now when somebody asks you that question. ¿Vale? Good? So far? Eso es. What I want us to get used to next is the idea of how we will maybe start to change conjugations a little bit. I want to pull out this idea of using just presente progresivo, but with the same verb, and how we'll talk about it for future using ir plus a plus an infinitive. So let's take a look at this page one more time. Una vez más. Vamos a ver. Okay. Okay, bien. So we'll have presente, and remember that presente in English may mean somebody is doing something. You know, I do talk, I am talking, I talk. All those ideas are possible interpretations of presente. But presente progresivo will mean right now. It'll have this structure. So the regular verb in present will be a plain conjugation like off the chart, right? The presente progresivo is great because it's very easy to use. All you conjugate is estar, and then that ando yendo never goes into a different form. It's always ando if it's an AR verb, or it's always yendo if it's an IR verb. And futuro, the actual activity goes back into the infinitive. Okay, the AR, ER, IR, original base form of the verb, and we conjugate ir. So with the first example, they'll all be presente. With the second example, it'll be, wow, all I really conjugate is estar with an ando yendo. And the last example will be a future. It'll be all you're conjugating is ir. Voy, vas, va, vamos, van. The little word a has to follow it, and then the infinitive. So the actual action word, the thing we're going to do, will be this part, the infinitivo, not conjugated. Y el ejemplo, and we take our generic vanilla flavor verb to do this. Speak Spanish, or does speak Spanish, or is speaking Spanish, habla español, that's all it is. But is speaking Spanish, meaning right now, is está hablando español, is going to speak Spanish, va a hablar español, okay? Bien, so we're gonna take escuchar and use it straight across the row. Does somebody wanna take first one and give all three examples? How it morphs from generally does
Sure.
it to doing it
Sure.
right now to
Sure.
will? Okay. Bien.
He listens to music. Él escucha música. He is listening to music. Él está escuchando música. And he is going to listen to music. Él va a escuchar música.
Excelente. Bien. So there are the verbs, and I want to make sure I keep up with my typing right here. So I'm just going to do the verb part of it. Escucha música, está escuchando, va a escuchar. Bien. They don't eat meat. They're not eating meat right now. They're not going to eat meat. And these will all be negative, so they'll have to have a no somewhere, right? They'll have to have a no somewhere. Alguien, who wants to take a turn at that one?
No comen carne.
Okay.
Non comiendo carne.
No comen carne.
Non van a comer carne.
No están comiendo carne, sí. Y
No van
no
a
van.
comer carne.
Sí, no van a comer carne. Bien, bien. And we put those little time things in there so that, you know, you are making that distinguishing, you're conveying that distinguishing idea with the tense. Okay, we leave, and we're going to use salir for this all the way across. Salir. Alguien, somebody want to try this one? Okay, bueno, Jan.
Salimos a las 8. Estamos
Salimos a las 8.
Estamos saliendo a las 8. Vamos a salir a las 8.
Exacto. Perfecto. Muy bien. Salimos. Estamos saliendo, meaning, wow, we're doing it right now. See, vamos a salir. It's indicating it will happen, but hasn't happened yet. We're going to use abrir.
Una pregunta. Una pregunta.
Sí, sí, sí.
On the present progressive, on the leaving, so I thought that would be if you're talking about something in the future, like at 8 o'clock, but it's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's not happening right now.
Oh, you know what? I probably should have taken this out here at 8. That would have been better.
Okay.
Yeah. Cut and paste I should have done.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, we're leaving. Oh, we're leaving now. That's really what is it. Yeah, no. Tienes razón. You're right. Bueno, okay. Número 4. We're going to use abrir all the way through.
I'll take that.
Mhm.
Tú abres temprano.
Abres, sí. Abres or abre, right? Depends on the you that you use.
¿Estás abriendo ahora?
Estás abriendo, muy bien.
Vas a abrir temprano.
Vas a abrir temprano. Muy bien. Excelente. Ok. Fantástico. Vamos a usar el número 5, vender. We're going to use vender in number 5. I'm going to move this up a little bit. ¿Cómo se usa vender aquí? Alguien, somebody want to volunteer with vender.
I'll take it. Viendo,
Bueno, Tomás.
viendo tacos. Estoy.
Just vendo.
Oh,
Vendo.
Estoy vendiendo tacos, and then voy a vender tacos.
Excelente. Muy bien. Vendo, estoy vendiendo, voy a vender. Perfecto. I travel with Carmen, meaning this is like a habit, right? I'm traveling with Carmen, we're talking about right now, and I'm going to travel. We're going to use viajar in all of those. Alguien, who wants to take a turn with that one?
Viajo con Carmen. Estoy
Sí.
estoy viajando con Carmen. And voy a viajar con Carmen.
Bien, voy a viajar. So the only one you want to work on is that middle one. Estoy viajando. Viajando. Estoy viajando con Carmen. Voy a viajar. Bueno. Next, we're going to use aprender. Aprender is to learn. They learn English. They are learning English. They're doing it right now, meaning they're in a class or a self-study session of some kind, and they're going to do it. ¿Quién quiere este ejercicio? Ok, vale, magnífico. Sí.
Ustedes aprenden el inglés. Ustedes están aprendiendo inglés. Ustedes van a aprender el inglés.
Ok, van a aprender. Van a aprender. Sí, van a aprender. Van a aprender. Aprenden, están aprendiendo, van a aprender. Bien. Do you wait here? Meaning is just, wow, is this the right place? You're asking somebody. Are you waiting here? You're talking about what somebody is doing right now. And are you going to wait here? ¿Quién quiere tratar esto? Who wants to try this one?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
¿Espera usted aquí?
¿Espera usted aquí?
¿Está usted esperando aquí? And va a esperar aquí.
Va a esperar. And of course, it depends on which you're using. Usted is what he is using, so he was consistent with that. Espera, está esperando, va a esperar. Perfecto, muy bien.
Pregunta.
Ayudar.
Pregunta.
Sí.
In the first one, is it espera versus esperas?
You could have espera.
He used an usted idea. An usted idea. If you have it as tú, then it will be esperas.
Okay.
And that's perfectly fine. Sí. It depends on which you're using entirely. Eso es. Okay.
One other question. For the future, where does the usted go? Is it va usted?
Because it's a question, va usted espera? Yeah, there's some flexibility where the usted can go. Okay, yeah, it's a question. So we're used to a sense where it's subject, verb, And with a question, the verb moves up front. So that question actually has a lot of flexibility. It can be, usted va a esperar, and you change your voice, keeping usted in the, usted va a esperar, or va usted a esperar aquí, va a esperar usted aquí. There's some flexibility with where you can put usted.
Okay, gracias.
Sí, de nada. Ok, bueno. Aquí estamos con 9, el verbo ayudar, to help. Oh, I do help every day. Okay. Trish, we haven't heard from you yet.
Ayudo todos los días. Estoy ayudando todos los días. And voy a ayudar todos los días.
Exacto. Okay. Muy bien. Excelente. And next we've got preparar, which is going to sound like kind of a mouthful once you get the ando tagged down to the end of it. We're preparing new dishes. We're but it's happening right now. And we will prepare. We're conjugating all these for we ideas. Cindy, do you want to try this one?
You're preparing. Nosotros preparamos nuevo. I'm not sure what dishes is.
Platos.
Platos. Okay. Nosotros preparando.
The preparando is good, but we're going to need an estar before that one.
Oh.
So back up just a little bit.
Estamos.
Estamos bien. Estamos preparando. Vale.
Nuevo platos ahora. Y vamos a preparar.
Exacto. Vamos a preparar. Okay. Vale. So what I wanted you to see is how we can use the same verb, but they're going to tweak a little bit depending on which structure you use it. All right. We're going to be talking about what you usually do, what you're doing right now as you're speaking versus what you're going to do. And you're manipulating that verb each time to give a different feeling to the time segment of how that's happening, right? See? Bueno, ¿hay alguna pregunta? Any kind of question about any of these? Sí or no?
I'm just asking about the platos there. Can we use comidas as well, or it's not the same?
Comida for the idea of dishes?
Yeah.
You could. You know, a specific dish, like you might say el término. You know, this is a vocabulary thing. If I want to say paella is a traditional dish. Paella es un plato tradicional. Plato means the actual physical plate. Plato can also mean a specific kind of recipe that one might prepare. It's just a little more specific than using comida, which is a real general word, real broad vocabulary term, but you could definitely use comida. And, you know,
but what do people usually use it? Like platos instead of comidas? Is that what they use it more?
Plato?
In a conversation, like, you know, when we talk and you use plato instead of comida.
Comida, so in a regular conversation, comida is generally, well, comida can mean a couple of things. It can mean a word, it can mean food in a very general sense, food in its broadest sense, any kind of food, comida, okay? Comida can also be used to refer to lunch sometimes. in certain regions. They like to use that word sometimes for the idea of lunch. So it might mean, comida might also mean a meal. El almuerzo es la comida principal. Lunch is the main meal. So comida has a number of interpretations depending on the context. Again, it can mean food in general. It can mean a meal. It can mean any type of general food, but plato. Okay, so here's an example how I would use plato. Plato, of course, and I'm going with things that are not like, tengo platos especiales para la Navidad. I've got special plates for Christmas. Let's say I've got something that's got like a Christmas pattern stamped on it, you know, plato, the physical plate, plato. The other way we'll use the word platos is, por ejemplo, okay. Ceviche es un plato especial en el Perú. Ceviche es un plato especial.
Okay.
Gazpacho es mi plato favorito de México. Gazpacho is my favorite Mexican food.
Muy bien.
And plato will just be referred to a specific type of recipe, a specific way that a food is prepared.
Okay.
Okay. Bien.
Gracias.
Muy común. Very, very common thing to use. Okay. Bueno. We are set with that. Get my screens readjusted here. ¿Hay más preguntas? Any other questions besides that? Sí o no?
No.
Nada.
Marilyn?
Sí.
Getting back to the platas, when you're talking about new dishes, would it be dishes new, like platos nuevos? Or would it be nuevos platas?
Like I like to eat new dishes when I go travel somewhere.
Yeah, whatever
It'll
that
probably
last
be-
sentence was, yeah.
Yeah. Nuevos platos would be very common instead of platos nuevos. Let's see, how do I explain this? How I explain this is, nuevo is a kind of adjective. Sometimes it means physically new, like, tengo un carro nuevo. I've got a new car. I just bought it. And then nuevo will often, you know, follow. But me gusta comer nuevos platos. I like to eat new dishes, and you really mean different dishes, like something you've never tried before. And that doesn't really paint a picture in your head because it's vague. It just means new dishes, not something that's brand new, like I just bought something, but the idea of something that's different. That kind of word, meaning of nuevo, will usually be before the noun. Nuevo and viejo are kind of odd that way. If nuevo or viejo really refer to the age of something, they'll follow the noun. Okay. But, por ejemplo, if you say my old friend, meaning you've had that friend for a long time, it'll be mi viejo amigo. Because you don't mean necessarily that he's old in age, but you've known him for a long time. He could still be a young person. Yeah. Eso es. Bien. Okay. Fantástico. Bueno. Okay. Before we go off into something new here, I want to take a chunk of time out. I'm looking at my time markers. This is perfect. Es perfecto. Do you have any questions from things that you did, reading that you did during the week? Your one chapter of reading, whether it was Pobre Ana or whether it was el escape cubano, whichever idea it was. Are there any questions that you had from reading, any structures, any vocabulary, even context?
Sí. En
Okay.
página 12, en el escape cubano, there's a phrase there, rápido, mi mamá, mi papá y yo nos vamos. Is that nos necessary there because you've already described the people, or is that?
Oh, the nos vamos. I put it in the chat box. If you don't have chat box turned on, turn on the chat box. Rápido, y toda la frase es rápido nos vamos, ¿sí? Rápido, mi papá y mi mamá. Mi papá, mi mamá y yo nos vamos. Okay, and I assume that your question is not about the rápido part. That just means quickly,
Right.
fast, right? But why nos vamos? Why nos vamos? Qué buena pregunta. Nos vamos looks, wow, what looks funny about that? Well, shouldn't vamos by itself be okay? Shouldn't that be enough? And shouldn't it be nosotros? Okay, nos vamos is a thing. I'm going to pull up a share screen because this is probably worthy of your screen. Nos vamos is an ever so slightly different verb than vamos. We've got ir, which means to go. And we've also got a related verb called irse. If you look it up in a dictionary, you have to look it up as irse with a se tagged on the end. And ir and irse are not very different from each other. Irse means to go. Oh, we would tag some kind of a preposition onto that in English. So we would say to go away. Or to go off into the, or just meaning that something happens like this. It gives a feel to it. It's right now. It's flowing. It's boom, boom. Irse. Okay. So here are the differences. In order to use it in this irse idea of go away or take off, giving more flow to that idea of ir, in order to give that idea, we have to use a little pronoun in front of it. And it isn't nosotros, it's nos. So, oops, and I should be consistent here. I'm going to start with yo. Because actually, this is a good verb for you, everybody to know. Ir, of course, is voy. And irse would be me voy. And a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of people get up from the table. You're done with lunch, right? You get up, me voy. And me voy means I'm out of here. I'm taking off. Okay, so what's the difference between voy and me voy? Voy, I'm going. Me voy, oh, I'm taking off now. I'm leaving now. I'm going now. It has the idea of I'm going to actually physically carry myself out of here. Me voy. So the tu form would be vas here, but te vas. Te vas. Are you taking off now? Te vas ahora. For él or ella, usted, you know very well it's va. And it would be se va. Se va. Oh, el pájaro, tweet, 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 a birdie. El pájaro se va. The bird's taken off. The bird's flying away. Se va. Se va.
So it's kind of like the present progressive. It's happening right at this moment.
In a way, in a way, yeah. It has a very fluid meaning to it. For nosotros, we usually use just vamos, let's go, but often people may express it as nos vamos, nos vamos, nos vamos, let's get out of here. Let's get out. Or we're leaving right now, right? And oops, van for plural, but se van. So those are the ways we use those two verbs, which are very close in meaning. Irse gives a greater feeling of fluid motion to it. But generally in English, we'll tag on a word like away to convey the same idea. But no, and if you want to use irse, these little pronouns will have to match up. So whereas with voy, I may always drop the yo to give the idea of I'm going away or I'm getting out of here right now. I'm taking off. Me voy. It's got to be a me voy. Te vas. So that little me or the te or the se or the nos, that's an integral part. It has to be paired up with that. So it doesn't get skipped like the yo, tú, nosotros gets skipped. Es buena pregunta. That is a really good question because irse is a super common verb. It's what they call a reflexive verb. But it's a verb that has a special meaning. It just gives a very in the present and very like a sense of quickness, a sense of immediacy to that activity. Es buena pregunta. That is a good question. Okay. Otra pregunta. Is there another question from your reading? And actually, I'm going to try to find a video. I think there's some videos on ir and irse. I'm going to find something for you for next week. Perdón, otra persona. Nora, did you have a question?
Marilyn?
Sí.
Yes. In Poprayana, it talks about the grade she's in school. So the sentence is, Ana está en el año nueve de la escuela. Is there another way that you could say ninth grade? I looked it up and there was one that said noveno grado.
Yes.
Instead of año nueve.
So in the chat box, I'm putting both of these in. Grado nueve, ninth grade, or noveno grado. Oh, and notice the order of the words is different. Yeah. Grado nueve, grade 9, noveno grado, ninth grade. That word noveno is ninth. Okay. Ninth is an ordinal number, noveno. I'm going to show you what those words are. You may hear them from time to time. But I think with the exception of words like maybe first, second, third, you maybe don't hear them quite as often. Conversational Spanish, but we're talking about ordinal numbers. So I'm going to go back to my share screen here. Oops. And actually, let's get rid of the other stuff. And we're going to bring this in. Okay, números, numbers. We have counting numbers and we have ordinal numbers. Ordinal, sí, ordinal. Okay. Counting numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? Etcétera, etcétera. Those are counting numbers. Ordinal numbers are numbers like this: first, second, third, fourth. They tell you what position, let's say, in line, something is. And that's why they're called ordinal numbers. They tell you the order of something. They don't tell you how many people are there, but, oh, that guy, he's the 5th one in line. That, right? Okay. Or this particular king, he was the 6th guy of this name. Okay, so those are what ordinal numbers are. And we only tell them when we tell what position, what place something is, not for quantities. Ordinal numbers don't tell you a quantity. They tell you where something fits in a sequence. Yeah, makes sense? So instead of uno, we got this word for first. Primero. Primero. And we use primero. You'll hear primero. Es el primero. Well, you'll hear primero to say something is first. So that word is a very super common, or that is probably the most common ordinal number that you may hear people use a lot in conversation. Sometimes it gets shortened to this word here, primer. I could say la primera mujer, the first woman, but el primer hombre, the first man. And ordinal numbers usually come in front of the noun. Okay? Es el mi primer carro, my first car. Mi primer carro fue un Oldsmobile. Okay? Mi primer carro, my first car. Or we say, we use this word primero a lot to tell a date on the calendar. Sábado fue el primero de mayo. Saturday was the 1st of May. El primero de mayo. And we only use primero with dates for date 1. For 2nd of May, it's el 2 de mayo. For 3rd of May, it's el 3 de mayo. But for 1st of May, it goes to the ordinal, not the counting number. All the other dates on a calendar are counting numbers. So you hear primero a lot to talk about dates. You hear primero because many times we talk about whoever is first, you know, in line, or won first place or something like that. But here are the ordinals, the not counting, the ordinal, the in order numbers. Primero, segundo, second, and you may have feminine forms of these words, by the way. Segundo, tercero is third, and that may, like primer, sometimes gets shortened to tercer. So you'll notice what gets dropped is this O. What gets dropped is this O. So for these two, for first and third, they may drop the O if they come in front of a masculine singular noun. So el tercer hombre, la tercera mujer. Okay, bien, so primero has a shortened form, tercero has a shortened form just for masculine singulars. Then we've got fourth, cuarto, fourth, whoops, bien, quinto, fifth, sexto, sixth, séptimo, 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 seventh, octavo, eighth, noveno, here comes your noveno word, ninth, oops, and décimo, décimo, 10th, décimo, 10th. After 10th, if you want to say 11th, they go back to the counting numbers in conversation. So 11th, they'll generally just use once, the counting number, 12, 13, etc. Now I'm going to tell you, there are ordinal numbers that mean 11th, 12th, 13th, but they're usually used just in formal writing and not in conversation. So ordinal numbers, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, those TH things we do in English, those are used up till 10th. And after that, we revert back to counting numbers for conversational use. Bien?
So
and those are the ordinal numbers.
In the context of,
and those,
I'm sorry, Marilyn, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
they just say año nueve, like year 9. Is that, so you could just simplify it and say year 9 in school?
You can, sure, yes. Both are used. Both are used. And kind of interchangeably. Yeah, not something you need to worry about. Am I using a term incorrectly a whole lot? But it's kind of nice to know those first through 10th numbers, you know, those can be. Okay, buena pregunta. Otra pregunta. Any other questions here from reading? Nada más?
No.
Nothing else? Okay, bien. Vale. Sometimes we don't come up with those. I am going to try to find a good video. There's one I have in mind, but I have to go back and review if it is actually slow enough. You may have to slow it down, but it will, or if it's, it might go into different tenses too. I'm sure I'm going to be able to find a video that will be helpful, because ir and irse are actually important and good things to know. Those two verbs, because you will hear people use them a ton. Okay. Vale, magnifico. We are going to, I will tell you, just keep reading your next chapter for next week. What I want to move into is something that's kind of a review next, and it's going to be a review of something we call stem changers. Stem changers, and for those of you who are new to this group from the Spanish Step 1, you've never seen this before. Everybody else in the group has seen this before, but we haven't talked about it in a really long while. So it's always good to review some of these verbs, because a lot of the stem changing verbs are important. And those of you from the Step 1 group are thinking, what the heck are stem changing verbs? Okay, we're going to explain what they are. I'm going to tell you first where they are in this book, whether you are new to this book or whether you are saying, oh, I need to review what the heck those are. I'm looking at chapter 6, el capítulo 6, en la página 70, on page 70. This topic begins on 70, and we're going to take a look at two categories, but just two today, and no more than two. Vamos a ver, and we're going to explain again. So you'll start to look at page 70. Bueno, stem changing verbs. For those of you who are new or what these are, let's take our clear drawings off. Some verbs, you know what? I'm going to start. I'm going to start not with a share screen, but with something else. Okay. It's a good thing to know that for a verb like plain on this one, llegar, right? Here is the type of verb it is. It's an AR verb. And the part that's not the ER or the AR or the IR, that's the stem. So this is the stem of the verb. And the stem, like a stem refers to a plant, the stem is just the main part. It's the part minus whatever the AR or ER or IR is at the end. So that's the stem. For beber, the stem is this, right? Okay. For abrir, the stem is this. That's what the stem is. Okay. Some verbs are what we call stem changers, and that means that, like this verb tener, it means stem changing, it means something in the middle of this part often gets a change. And what changes in the stem is always a vowel. And it'll always be the vowel that's next to the ER. Ooh, I'm going to show you why that's important. Okay. So you know the conjugations of tener, even though you don't know it as a stem changing verb, but tengo, well, wait, that didn't change in tengo, but tienes, tiene, it's IE. That's what a stem change means. This vowel splits off into something else. Okay. And it's important to know that the stem change happens in whatever syllable is next to the ER or AR or the IR. So tener, there it was kind of a no-brainer. But in a verb like this, entender, which is a stem changer, it is good to know that when we're looking at the vowel that gets the change, it is next door to the ER. It is not this E that gets a change, it is this one, because it is whatever syllable is next door to the ER. Whatever is next door to the ER, that's what will get the stem change. Okay. Stem changes are important in Spanish because they are a category, and they're a quite large category. They are a category of irregular verb. Okay. Now, that being said, we should know this. Stem changing verbs, change a vowel in the middle of the stem. And this is in addition to the usual verb conjugation at the end. Okay. Stem changing verbs can be in the AR category, the ER category, the IR category. We're going to leave the IR category kind of on its own, because that IR category is always weird. It always does multiple weird things in many tenses. A lot of times. Anyway, the stem change, so a stem changing verb can be an AR verb, it can be an ER verb, it can be an IR verb, but there are going to be 3 types of stem changes. And the sad thing is, you have to memorize which verbs fall into this stem changing category. You just have to know. So you have to know it from usage, from repetition, from practice. There are tons and tons and tons of stem changing verbs. But there are 3 general types of stem changes. And what you'll see on page 70, we're going to focus today and next week on 2 of the 3. Okay, but I'll show you what all 3 are. The first kind of stem change is an E that will change to an IE. So it literally splits off into 2 vowel sounds instead of 1. And this will be like right in the middle of the verb. So you have to know this stem change happens, and you have to make that change and the conjugation change on the end. You're changing 2 things in the verb instead of 1. Okay. The second type of stem change is an O that changes into UE. So again, it splits off into 2 vowel sounds. Okay. And there's a third category of E. Again, wait a minute, isn't this E? Well, yes, it is, E to IE, but some are of an E changing into just the I. the letter I by itself. That is a kind of odder category. We're going to leave that one aside for next week. We're not going to address that yet this coming week. Okay, we're going to leave that off to another time. But we are going to look at these two because these two are big categories. There are lots of verbs that do this, and you just have to get a feel for what they are. You just do, sadly. Okay. So the stem change is an internal vowel change. It will happen in most of the conjugations, but not all of them. It will not happen in nosotros, and it will not happen in vosotros. Let's look at tener, even though tener doesn't strictly follow this pattern. But you know tener, right? You've seen tener, you've used tener. Tengo, tienes, tiene, you've used it. So we're going to use tener as an example, even though it's not a perfect stem changing verb. You will see why. Tener has conjugations, and tengo, tenemos, tienes, tenéis, oops, perdón, tiene, and tienen. Okay, tengo is almost a good stem changing verb. This one doesn't fit the right pattern though. The tengo one is just odd all the way around. But you see what happens here. This, even though tener is not a perfect stem changing verb, because you'll see why in a minute, it does get a lot of these IEs. But notice, tenemos doesn't have it, tenéis doesn't have it. Okay. But it's an E to an IE type of change. This is just kind of an aberration with that verb. Let's get something that's more traditionally E to IE kind of verb. Let's take entender. Entender is my favorite IE stem changing verb because it means to understand. And even though we taught you comprender means to understand, entender, in my opinion, is really what people use way more than comprender. We give you comprender because it's a regular verb and it's easy to conjugate. And you don't have to think about any of this stem changing thing. But here's what happens to entender. Entender, we have to look at the E that is right next to the ER ending. Because wait, wow, this has two E's, yeah? So we look at this E here, next door to the ER ending. And yo, tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes, those are the ones that got the stem change. Nosotros does not. It will stick with the original vowel in the infinitive. So let's see what it looks like. Entiendo. Entiendo means I understand. And that is the most common response when somebody is acknowledging, I get it. Entiendo. 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 This E here, entender, splits off into IE. Entiendo. And that conjugation, all is what you expect. It's a normal conjugation, but you're essentially making two changes here, the E to an IE, and then you're conjugating for yo, right? Okay. Nosotros will not get the stem change. It goes back to the full, whatever that stem is. Entende. Entendemos. Nosotros does not get a stem change. It's left out of this funny vowel thing. It's left out. Okay, let's look at tú. Entiendes. Entiendes, do you understand? It gets a stem change. Entiendo, yo. Entiendes, tú. Vosotros, oddly enough, also does not get a stem change, but we don't use it very much, so it's an outlier, right? We don't really use it. But the LE a usted form will get the stem change. Entiende. And ellos seas ustedes will get the stem change. Entienden. Okay. I'm going to see if I can use this. Ooh, this is a little too fat, but well. These stem changing verbs are called boot or shoe verbs because even though they're irregular, they are irregular in a certain pattern. And the pattern looks like a boot or a shoe. That's an ugly looking boot or shoe, but still. Okay. Nosotros is always left out of the vowel change. Vosotros, which you guys are not using because we don't use it in Latin America, that is always left out of that vowel change. But that is the way the pattern will follow every time. The boot or shoe, they call them boot or shoe verbs. So entender is a verb that is a stem changing verb. And I will ask you to check out pages 70 and on to look at the E, na, E. Here's another one. Ooh, I'm going to leave my share for a moment. I'll come back to that. Here is another super common E to IE stem change. I'm picking the ones that are most common for people to use when they're just shooting the breeze. Empezar. Empezar means to begin or to start. So we often use this to say what we're starting to do, what I'm starting to do. Oh, if a show is starting, if a movie is starting, if a class is starting. So we use this a lot. Entender and empezar are two extremely common verbs. And notice it's important to know there are two E's in empezar. The one that gets the IE is the one that is right next door to the AR ending. That's how you know which one to change. Sometimes it will be obvious, but with this one, it's not obvious because I got two E's. Well, which one gets the stem change? Here's the one. And it will get the stem change for everything, but not nosotros, but not vosotros. Everything else. So we'll take a look at how empezar rolls. Okay. Bien. Let's look at empezar. Empiezo. But nosotros will not get a change. Empezamos. Empiezas. So you'll see the endings. Entender was an ER verb. Empezar is an AR verb. The conjugation will be what you expect it should be for an AR verb. It's just that middle vowel that you have to be thinking about. Empieza. Empiezan. So the way this will sound is empiezo, empiezas, empieza, empezamos. It goes back to empez, that stem, empezáis, and then empiezan. So our shoe or boot, if we were to draw it, would look like this. Okay. Nosotros is always left out of the vowel change. It just does a normal conjugation, as does vosotros. So those are E to I conjugations. And it is a super big category of verbs. You have to get just kind of comfortable with what is in that category. we're going to take a look at some other verbs that are in that category. So the verb pensar, to think or to think about, is in that category. You know, if somebody is pensive, that means they ponder something a lot. Yeah. That will be an IE stem changer. So part of this is kind of a vocabulary thing. You're getting used to the types of verb. Cerrar, to close. This is the opposite of abrir. Yeah. Cerrar, to close, is a stem changer. So it gets a stem change in the middle. Bien, right there. The verb for sit down. Oh, kind of like you had irse. This has a se hanging on the end. It means it's reflexive. But sentar, to be seated, to sit yourself down, to plunk yourself down somewhere. Perder, to lose something, is in this E to IE stem change category. ¿Qué más, qué más, qué más? Here is a synonym for empezar, comenzar. We have a word commence, but we don't really use commence very often, except for commencement, graduation, right? It's the same thing. This is interchangeable with empezar. I think empezar is a little more common, but this also has an IE stem change. Comienzo, comienzas, comienza, comienzan, but comenzamos. Bien, a ver. So lots and lots and lots of E to IE. Referir, IE stem change. Muy común, preferir, to prefer something. Stem change. And again, which E gets the stem change? It's the one that's right next door to that IR. Preferir. Prefiero, prefieres, prefiere, etc. Bien. A ver, so those are some examples. Oh, even this word that means to snow. And to snow only gets changed, conjugated one way, because I don't snow and we don't snow and they don't snow. It snows. So it's only nieva. 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 It snows. Nieva en las montañas. Nieva mucho en Canadá. Nieva en el Ártico. Bien. Bueno, no nieva en Arizona. It does not snow in Arizona. Generalmente no nieva en Arizona. Okay, and that is a real common IE verb, but it only gets conjugated that one way. Okay, bueno, in this particular chapter in the book, they're going to give you a number of verbs, and they categorize them a little bit differently than I do. I think they categorize them by AR and ER and IRs. Yeah, but you'll start to see them on page 70. And so your job this coming week will be make sure you're familiar with what these verbs mean, what they actually mean. Okay, so what does cerrar mean? What does empezar mean? What does pensar mean? We're going to look at the second category here in just a second, but I want to pause before we get off the topic of IR, excuse me, of E to IE stem changes. Do you have any question about how that works? Just the mechanics of it. You'll get ways to practice it next week. Sí o no? ¿Es obvio? Is it obvious? Yeah.
Eso.
¿Es obvio? Okay. Okay. Vale, magnifico. Okay, we're going to go back to share screen look, because these are things you're going to use real actively next week. I'm going to give you things to practice with. These are the next category is not going to be E to IE. It's going to be O to UE. How did I get? Oh, that's because that moved over. Okay. So we're going to clear the whole screen here. Get ourselves a new screen. Okay. E2IE is a big category. Here is, if it's not equally big, pretty darn close, right? The O to UE category, okay? And again, you'll just have to memorize which verbs follow this, and you'll see lots and lots of examples. O to UE means we'll have an O that is going to change instead of an E that is going to change, and it's going to split up into a double vowel thing. And we're going to take dormir because that is a really common verb to sleep. And you have the word dormitorio as a bedroom, right? One of the possible words we can use to say bedroom, dormitorio. So the verb end of that stem, it comes from a Latin thing, is dormir. Dormir, okay? So dormir is going to conjugate like you expect an IR verb to conjugate. So the IR part of it, it will have normal conjugations. But that O in dormir is going to morph off into a UE in that shoe pattern or boot pattern. So it will be duermo, right? But not nosotros. So nosotros goes back to dorm. Dormimos. Yeah, dormimos. Okay. Tú duermes. But nosotros, vosotros is going to be this dormís thing, and we're not really using that, but just so you see what it looks like. Duerme. And duermen. So there's what a typical UE stem change looks like. Okay, and we'll show you it follows the boot or shoe pattern. Everything within the boot or the shoe gets that stem change. Okay, so the way it's going to sound is like this. Duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos goes back to O, dormimos, dormís, duermen. Okay, ¿vale? Duermo, duermes, duerme, duermen. Okay, we're going to take otro ejemplo, another example, but not an IR verb. We're going to take an example that is, we're going to take the example of recordar. Recordar, well, there's only one O to change, so you know it's got to be that one. But again, it's next door to the AR. So we're going to take recordar. Recordar is to remember. And you might have guessed that because it looks like record, right? And you're recording it in your brain. So recuerdo, but nosotros will not do that. Well, nosotros will go back to that original O. Recordamos, okay? Recuerdas. And vosotros will go back to what it's supposed to do. Él, ella, usted, recuerda. And ellos, ellas, ustedes, recuerdan. Bien. ¿Vale? So we've got, again, here's our boot. Here's our boot or shoe. Oh, wow. That all ran together. It wasn't supposed to do that. It's not supposed to do that. Now it won't let me back in.
Idea.
Yeah. It won't let me in at all. Okay. I'm going to retype that so it doesn't look so lame. You got the general idea, though. We'll pull up a new text box down here. That's visually very confusing. Recuerdo, recordamos, recuerdas. Okay. Bien. Done. So that's how it really looks without all the words running together. Okay, so those are the two biggest stem change categories, an E to an IE, an O to a UE. I'm going to show you some other verbs that do the same thing as dormir, to sleep, and recordar, so that you've got kind of a context, a frame of reference. Okay, a ver. And I'm sectioning these off because some of them are kind of special. Okay. Contar. Contar muy común. Contar is to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's to count.
Cuento.
Contar also can mean to tell a story. People may use this verb like they use ¿qué tal? Or ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué cuentas? What are you telling? Is kind of a slangish way of asking, how are you doing? Sort of like asking, how's your day going, I guess. Contar. ¿Qué cuentas? How are you doing? Contar. Contar, to tell a story. Here's one that is the only oddball one. Instead of an O to UE, it's a U to UE. Jugar. Jugar means to play, as in to play a game or to play a sport, not to play an instrument. We do not use jugar to talk about pianos, flutes, violins, any kind of a musical instrument, only for games and sports, okay? Jugar. Board game, jugar. Darts, jugar. Ajedrez, chess, jugar. Béisbol, jugar. Fútbol, jugar. Jugar. Okay, so it'll be juego.
Instrument.
Perdón?
What is the word for playing instrument then? Playing
an instrument is a totally different verb. It is tocar, P-O-C-A-R, tocar.
Okay.
Tocar is used for instrument. Tocar also means to touch something, to touch. And because you have to touch an instrument to play it, I think that's where they get that. So tocar means to touch an object or to play an instrument, but jugar is to play a sport, a game, an actual physical thing. Oh, the word for to fly, volar. Volar. Vuelo. Vuelas. Vuela. Volamos. Vuelan. Eso es. Probably the most common UE verb of all, poder, because this means to be able to. Can. C-A-M, not a can of worms, not a can of corn, but I can sing, I can see that, I can't understand this. That kind of can. Poder, poder, poder. So, muy importante. Puedo, puedes, ER verb, right? Puedes, puede, podemos, we can, pueden, they can, okay? When we use poder, the verb that comes after it will stay unconjugated as an infinitive. Okay, and this is probably the most common verb of any of the UEs. So I'm going to show you how this one works. Puedo hablar español. I can speak. So literally means I am able to speak. Puedo hablar. And the hablar part does not get conjugated. Otherwise, it would sound like I speak. I can speak. Puedo hablar. Puedo nadar, I can swim. Puedo esquiar, I can ski. Puedo montar en bici, I can ride a bike. No puedo hablar chino, I can't speak Chinese. No puedo comer galletas. I can't eat cookies because I'm watching my rain, right? No puedo ver tu carro. I can't see your car. Okay, so poder, muy importante. That is a UE stem changer. And you should definitely know what that verb means. Recordar. Sonar, to talk about a phone ringing. Suena, el teléfono suena. The phone sounds off. Suena, it's a stem changer. Okay, a ver, ¿qué más? Soñar, different letters. Soñar, to dream, is a stem changer. Sueño, sueño, sueñas, sueña, soñamos, sueñan, to dream. Sí. Muy deprimido, very depressing, but a UE stem change. Morir, to die. Often you, like you have the little say with irse that Jeff asked about, the nos vamos thing. This is often used with this, like this. Okay, if I don't want to really talk about like COVID related dying, if I just want to say I'm dying of thirst, me muero de sed. I put a me in front of it. Me muero de sed. I'm dying of thirst. Te mueres de hambre. You're dying of hunger. It's kind of an exaggeration, like we use an exaggeration, right? You're literally not dying, but this can be the literal dying thing. Yeah. Muero, mueres, muere, morimos, mueren.
Morris.
Vale. Morir. They've got a whole verb that means to eat lunch. This whole thing means eating lunch, eating your midday meal. El almuerzo is the meal. El almuerzo is lunch, but almorzar, almuerzo, almuerzas, almuerza, almorzamos, almorzáis, and almuerzan. Eat lunch. Specific meal of the day. Okay, so we can't substitute that one for breakfast or dinner. It's got to be for that time of day. A ver. Probar. It looks like probe. It kind of is. Probar can mean to taste something, like take a little morsel. You want to see if you like it, so you just taste it. You don't eat the whole thing. Probar can mean to taste something. It also means to try something on, like to try on a skirt because you don't know if it fits yet. You try on a pair of pants because you don't know if they fit yet. It can also mean to test something out. So this will go into forms like pruebo, pruebas, prueba, probamos, because amos will not get the stem change. It goes back to the original o. Prueban. See? So, pretty flexible verb. Okay, a ver. Uy, 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 uy. Ooh, okay. A couple special ones I want you to show, or I want to show you. Llover, to rain. It's got a stem change. But like nevar, snowing, I don't rain, you don't rain, we don't rain. Only way we use this is it rains. Llueve. Llueve mucho en la selva. It rains a lot in the jungle. Llueve mucho en la Florida. Llueve mucho en Inglaterra. It rains a lot in England. Llueve. Llueve. It rains. It rains. Oh, this is a good time for us to take a look at these two verbs for a quick minute. If I don't do this now, I will forget. Okay. Let's look at these two verbs, nevar and llover, because this is something that is kind of an important fine point. Llover, to rain, and nevar, to snow. These are precipitation thingies, yeah. So we only conjugate it one way. So, okay, that's the good news. If I want to say generally it rains, right? Like here it rains a lot. Well, if we have a good monsoon season, right? It rains in July, it rains in, yeah, depende, it depends. Okay. But if I just want to talk about generally, it rains, llueve. Llueve aquí, it rains here in agosto. It rains here in August. I'm talking about a general pattern, right? A general pattern. Llueve. Llueve. Llueve mucho en Costa Rica. It's a rainforest, so it rains a lot there. This is a general pattern. And I use presente to do that, don't I? Yeah. When I talk about a general pattern. Llueve aquí en agosto. Llueve mucho en Costa Rica. But what if here, I want to say it's raining, meaning right now. Here's how I do that. Está lloviendo. Oh, if you want to talk about what's happening right now, you really have to use that ing thing you just learned. Está lloviendo. But that's super easy to use because I don't rain and we don't rain. The only way I'm ever going to use that is está lloviendo or llueve. Llueve for a general pattern, but está lloviendo, it's happening right now.
Está lloviendo.
Bien. And lloviendo does not get the stem change because these ando yendo things, most of them don't. Not all of them, but most of them don't. Bien. Let's look at nevar because it's going to, oh, pregunta, question?
No.
No? Let's look at nevar. It's going to do the same thing. No nieva en Arizona. No nieva en Arizona. It doesn't snow in Arizona. Well, not here. Mejor decir no nieva en Phoenix. Sí, nieva en las montañas de Arizona, ¿verdad? It does snow in the mountains. No nieva en Phoenix, no nieva con frecuencia en Phoenix. Nieva mucho en Minnesota. Nieva mucho en Canadá. Nieva mucho nieva mucho
en Rusia.
Sí, sí, ok. Nieva mucho en Chicago, nieva mucho en Detroit, nieva mucho en Nueva York. Okay, places where it rains, snows a lot. But if I want to say, like if your relatives are calling from the Midwest or the Great North, and you ask them, hey, what's it like there? Está
nevando.
¿Cómo se dice? How do we say it's snowing? Nevando. Snowing, está nevando. So this ing is what you use to say it's happening now, to talk about a current condition. Está lloviendo, está nevando. Está lloviendo, está nevando. Bien? So that is one of your super great common uses of the progressive, and that tells you how we talk about that type of weather condition using either present or present progressive. Bien?
Bien.
Vale, ok. Entonces, para tarea, sí, son las 11:30. Next week, when you come into class, you will actually use these a lot to talk about people doing different things. You probably won't use the llover and nevar very much, but you will use a lot of them. So to prep for class next week, I want to make sure that you read through pages, and I'm going to give you really specific pages because I want you to avoid that third type of stem change. It'll be 70, 70, página 70. Y 72. 70 and 72. And just take a look at a lot of these verbs. Get to know what the verbs mean. And I will have you practicing in class using conversation questions that use these kinds of verbs. And I will send you the questions ahead of time so that you can actually prep what you're going to say, to talk about, so you can practice that pattern. I'm going to send you a good video that will show you how these stem changes work. Again, different explanation. That's not mine. It helps sometimes to hear somebody else's explanation. And do your next reading. Whatever your next chapter is in your respective books. Okay, ¿está bien?
Sí,
está bien. Está bien. Okay, and we're going to use these stem changers in present tense. We're going to go away from the está nevando or está lloviendo. We're going to go away from that ing form. We're going to go back into present because these stem changes happen primarily in present tense. Okay, so we'll go back to that and we'll use lots of these verbs and review what they mean next week. ¿Está bien?
Sí.
Está bien.
Marilyn, I have a
Okay.
question. For the summer, the enrollment for the summer, I'm just asking here, if we wanted to do that, but the thing is, usually in the summer, we'll travel here and there. So if you cannot join the class and you give the homework, what do you want us to do? Like sending it to you, the homework, or what? What do you expect?
Oh, you mean like if you're going to be on vacation?
Yeah, I mean, vacation for a couple of weeks. So what do you want?
So, I know some people, skip summer if they know they're going to be on the road a lot. And sometimes they don't know if they're going to have internet. And so it might not be practical for them. That really depends on your personal situation. If you sit out the summer session, I would say just keep going with Duolingo. Keep going with some reading. I can give you some suggestions if you email me and want to.
But if I
get
want
a little reader,
but you record anyway, right? The session.
I record anyway.
Yeah, so I can still follow that. But what do you want me to
Absolutely.
do? In terms of the homework, do you want me to send it to you? Homework? Or
if you want to, you can. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, you can send it to me, and I'll take a quick look and give you the feedback. Oh, sure.
Okay.
That works fine.
Okay.
That works fine.
All right.
Perdón. Bien, buena pregunta. Yeah. If you are going to be watching remotely all the time because you're on the road a lot, that is perfectly okay. And just send it to me, and I'll shoot you back a pretty quick response, usually with 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
Because this summer we're not going anywhere, so I know I will be here.
Okay.
Marilyn, do you think we'll be online in the fall?
I think we are likely to be online still for the fall. That has they have not yet contacted contacted me from Scottsdale's offices about that yet, but I think we will be online still for the fall. There are a lot of folks who were weighing in that they were still not comfortable with the variant situation and being like in close proximity to people when we don't have like super great like windows to open to let airflow go through quick, well. So I think that's how that's going to come down, but I don't know 100% for sure yet. So I'll keep you advised as I hear more.
Thank you.
All right.
Good? Okay.
Gracias.
Bien. Ok. ¿Hay más preguntas o no? Bien.
Bien.
Bueno, fantástico. Entonces nos vemos la próxima semana. Next week we'll see you guys again.
Gracias.
Hasta luego.
Gracias.
Nada, de nada. Es un placer, como siempre.